Thank you, Dirk, and sorry for the last presenters. But we have to keep the time a bit because it's okay. Yeah, that's true. And as Dirk said, there can be personal questions during the break for lunch break. Okay, so we have to move on because we have still two panel discussions this morning. As I said in the beginning already, so the Congress was 3 days. And the first day was really on creativity and the role of the creator. The second day was more about sustainability and entrepreneurship. And this day, the focus is on fashion activism, the political aspects of fashion, and the notion of originality. And that's the first panel. So I like to invite Christine de Keersmaeker, Barbara Gessler, and Samuel de Goede to take place on the stage, please. We have a fourth presenter, Marie de Bellefroid. She's the IP responsible at Delvaux. Delvaux is the most known Belgian brand for bags. Exists already from the 19th century, is even older than Hermes. And she will join us online. So she sent the video. That's true. Yeah. Okay. I will fill the.
Good morning, everyone. I introduce myself. I am Marie de Bellefroid, legal director for the company Delvaux. Delvaux is the oldest luxury leather goods maison in the world.
So she presented herself again, and but we will come back to the movie after we listened to Christine de Keersmaeker. So, but let's start the discussion. But what is at stake? Yes, the digitization of fashion is getting more and more reality, and that gives a lot of challenges for the fashion sector, and also notions of innovation, creativity, shared economy in society are things that also the fashion sector has to deal with. So we are going to question what are these concepts of originality, of creativity. It's also important for the artist because how does the artist have to deal with that? When you start your career, you don't know if you will become successful or not. And as I said in the beginning, also the fashion itself is being digitized. And so NFTs, blockchain, also new things that are already happening. But what does that mean for the future? So first we will start with Christine de Keersmaeker. She's the senior counsel at Astrea Law attorneys. So she's a lawyer and specialized in IP and the creative industries and also in fashion. She's teaching also at in our program in the International Master of Fashion Management. And as an expert, she will, I think, say something about the notion of authenticity and originality. Okay.
Good morning and welcome. Yes, I will try to, in 2 words, explain to you a little bit about the terms authenticity and originality, which as a lawyer, I have to stick to the words that the law uses, and that's not always very easy. But authenticity usually refers to the proven fact that something is reliable, that something is authentic, legitimate, real, genuine. So these words all go with authenticity. And it was often used before, but still is, in art, referring to, for instance, a real Karel Appel or a real painting of the 19th century. And experts would then say, is it or is it not? Nowadays, it's also used to refer to, is a fashion item real or not? And when you ask Google, how can you tell if a Louis Vuitton is authentic? That's exactly what I Google. Then Google will tell you in 5 steps how to tell a real Louis Vuitton from a fake. And it gives you then step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Examine the shape, proportions, posture, look closely to the stitching, etc., etc. Authenticity is, however, about establishing the identity of the owner or the user. It's a proof of ownership. And authenticating is really important in business and for legal matters, of course. So it is about providing proof of ownership, notwithstanding whichever creations, in fashion also, and notwithstanding whichever rights you want to claim for these creations. So whether you claim copyrights, whether you claim design and model rights, patent rights, or even trademark rights. It's a proof of ownership. And in that sense, I have a couple of examples. So here you see the different rights that you could claim for. And the proof of ownership, for instance, the Louis Vuitton bag is protected by a design and model right. And then you go to the design and model registry and you can find your certificate of ownership. The cape shoe is designed and is protected by a patent. If you go to the patent registry, then you can ask for your certificate of ownership of your patent. The Hermès bag is a bag which is protected by trademarks. It's a 3D form, trademark protected bag. You go to the trademark registry and you can claim your certificates for proving your ownership. The Jean-Paul Gaultier dress is protected by copyright. There is no copyright registry. So you have to organize your own protection in a way. You can do that, for instance, by filing a iDepot with the Benelux Office for the Intellectual Property. So that's for the authenticity, which is, as I said, a proof of ownership. Originality is different. Originality is a condition for copyright protection. So it's a condition that is set by copyright legislation in order to, make sure that you can claim a copyright on your work. And what does that mean, originality? Well, in order to go back to the term originality, we can actually go back to the start of copyright law, which is in the Middle Ages with the printing revolution. And later on in the 17th and the 18th century, that becomes an individual right of the author for what he creates. Nowadays, and we will hear more about that from Barbara as well, I think, nowadays, copyright is somehow harmonized by international treaties, on a European level by several directives, and especially by the judgments of the European Court of Justice. And it is actually the European Court of Justice that has explained what we need to understand of what is to be considered as original. What is originality? And that's what the European Court of Justice says. It's the author's own intellectual creation. Now, I can't get into details today, but just a little word about the author. Well, the author is a human being. So, meaning that non-human generated works will not be original and will not be protected. And that raises, of course, the question nowadays with technology, with robotics, what about if a robot creates a work? Own means that it has to be the author's own creation, not copied from someone else. And intellectual means, again, referring to the author, that he has the freedom to make free and creative choices and put his personality in what he creates, he or she, of course. So that is basically what the legislation today says, at least in Europe. But generally, worldwide, it's almost the same interpretation that is given. And so we have some very interesting questions here. Now, maybe also to add, original does not require an artistic value. It does not require a financial value. It does not require a quantitative criteria, nor a qualitative criterion. So whether it's fantastic or not fantastic doesn't matter. Only the author's own intellectual creation matters. And to finish my introduction, I think we need to put originality, which is a condition for copyright, next to other conditions such as novelty in design and model rights, novelty in patent rights, and distinctiveness in trademark rights. But I'm not going to give you a lecture on that. We will hear more of that today in the discussion.
Very much, Christine. Thank you for clarifying the difference between authenticity and originality according to the law and legislation. But let's see now how that works in practice. And so therefore we chose a more traditional company like Delvaux, and afterwards Samuel, who is, I will tell that later. So let's listen first to Delvaux and to Marie de Bellefroid, how they deal with the notion of originality, and are they protecting it or not, their models or not. So we can listen now to the video.
Good morning, everyone. I introduce myself. I am Marie de Bellefroid, legal director for the company Delvaux. Delvaux is the oldest luxury leather goods maison in the world, and Delvaux is mostly well known in Belgium and also internationally, because we have nowadays 45 stores in the world, mostly in Asia, in China, Singapore, Korea, but also one store in New York and a few stores in North America. I'm really sad not to be here with you all this morning, but I'll try to bring my input with this short video. So what about the protection of our products and the notion of originality? Concerning the leather goods products, we don't protect them with the copyright as itself. We use another legal category, which is the designs and models. And for this kind of designs and models, the notion of originality is not used. We use another notion, another criteria, which is the novelty. However, what's important to note is that the way to proceed and the way to think about an IP protection for products is quite the same, as we need to make sure, in any case, that our teams and everyone in the company and everyone involved in the creation process is aware of the criteria and is aware of the fact that we cannot infringe a third IP rights. So how do we proceed? We have internal processes and internal checks to make sure that our products are always new. And it can happen, and it has already happened, that the legal team could ask to change a part of a product or the product itself, as it is too similar to the product of someone else. What's also important for us is that we don't always try to create something really new. We also try to use our former models and our former collections. And about that, our main challenge today is to make sure that the protection of our former models, which were created a long time ago, can remain protected, which is quite a challenge because the legal category of the designs and models has a limited duration in the time. A model can only be protected for 25 years. So it's quite a daily challenge to make sure that our models or former models or iconic shapes remain protected. That was my few words about originality, about counterfeiting and enforcement of all rights. Of course, today the challenge is to protect our rights on the internet, because of course counterfeiting is more digital than physical for the moment. We work with several tools and several service providers, and I can assure you that there is a lot to do, and that we take actions every day to remove IP infringement on the net. So I hope these few words brought input to the panel, which I'm sure is quite interesting. I would be happy to receive the feedback thereafter, and I thank you everyone for your attention.
She can't hear it, unfortunately, but but it's very kind of you. Yeah. Yes, going back to Christine, because you said also very shortly, yeah, there is now the new notion of novelty. She talked about it as well. Yeah, you have to explain it because we don't understand that. What is the difference between originality and novelty?
It's not very easy to explain, but novelty in design and models rights is actually all about not being commonplace in the area of that specific sector. So novelty in copyright is not necessary, but it is in design and models right. So we are going to, as Marie said, they are going, when they make bags, they are going to compare what is commonplace at that moment in time and all what's previous. And they are going to look, is what I am creating commonplace at that moment? If it is, it's not okay. Then I may be copying someone and I may be infringing other people's rights, other companies' rights. Is that a bit clear?
Yeah, but that's the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. So, do you think their way how they deal with indeed originality and the novelty, and also by protection, that's a fundamental position. Do you think that's the right way to react on it?
Yeah, that's a whole discussion, of course, and maybe with some we will have a little discussion about that. Is it wise to protect your creations or not? Obviously, I'm an IP lawyer. I'm going to tell you yes. But it's not because I'm an IP lawyer that I will tell you yes. It's because it's been proven all over the world. And if you read reports about the importance of intellectual property rights in business, you will see that its importance is only growing. Immaterial assets are becoming more and more important. And the more technology involved also in fashion and in the fashion industry, the more immaterial assets, which are intellectual properties, are becoming important. Of course, it's an investment because you have to deposit your trademark, you have to register your design, you have to file for a patent, etc., etc. It's an investment and it costs money, but because you make that investment, you can also create a return on investment. You can license your rights, which you could not if you don't have them. When you sell your company will, and I can't get into detail and I can't refer to many reports about that, but reports say that nowadays 60 to 90%, depending on the business and the sector, is in immaterial value. So 60 to 90% of companies overall is in immaterial assets. So that proves that I think getting your creations protected is important, because without protection, you cannot get this return on investment.
Yes, thank you very much. And indeed, in a way, it's not new. Licensing is something that already Dior did, and it's a common practice. But of course, with the internet, it's coming more and more difficult to control. That's a paradox, and that's also what we want to discuss. So therefore, I go now to Samuel de Goede. How do you say it in English? Yeah, de Goede. Yeah, my name is even worse in English. So yeah, so I'm really happy that you're here. Because he's not only very busy, as we all are, but they received yesterday the Dutch Design Award in the Dutch Design Weeks. So we need to congratulate him. So normally you would celebrating now, but you choose to come to Antwerp. So I really appreciate that. And Samuel is the design director at Borre. That's the company of Borre Akkersdijck. And he's leading the Textile Innovation Studio. And what that is, you may explain that to the audience.
I believe we have a video as well. I'm going straight to Eindhoven after this, by the way. So. happy to be here now, but then going to join the crew.
Hi, welcome by Borre. I'm Borre. Please come in. So this is where we work on the future of textile creation. There's nothing that we use more on and around the body than textile. So you can imagine this industry is huge, and unfortunately it's one of the most polluting industries in the world. Oh, can we do this later? Thanks. When designing a textile, 80% of the entire footprint is set in stone. So every decision we make really matters. Yet, as creators, we're not able to make those decisions in the current industry. Well, at Borre, we're committed to change this.
Let's go.
Our mission is to enable and inspire an entire generation of creators to make less but more meaningful and responsible products. From our early days, we've always pushed to make the most responsible, fit-to-purpose textiles for our products. Well, with Borre Create, we open up our ecosystem for experts, suppliers, and knowledge partners, enabling you as a creator to find freedom in creating textile and making conscious decisions while doing so. Borre Create is our solution to give back control to the creator, so we can play, and play. It's a digital platform that makes it super easy to design and produce responsible knitted textile for everybody that designs with it. By combining suitable knit types and functional yarns, we've created a series of responsible textiles, for all your different use cases. After selecting, you can start creating your own color and play with your custom artwork, so you can integrate your brand's DNA in your textile. Looks good. I think we should run with this. Please have a seat. The nice thing about Borre Create is that the editor is what you see is what you get. So you see right away what your textile is going to look like. And then when you're ready with your designs, we knit your sample in no time in our knit lab and send them your way within 2 weeks. Once you're happy, we take care of your production using a worldwide transparent ecosystem of suppliers and factories. And good to know, there's no real limit to the size of your order. We can deal with it. But as much as we value creative freedom and speed of production, we deeply admire the craft and innovation brought by our partners that enable us to make these textiles. That's why we value an open source mentality and open up our entire ecosystem. Together we're committed to transparency, to change the textile industry for the better. So as creators, we're the gatekeepers of doing better. Thank you for your visit. Let's play together. Perfect. Let's go for this one. Yeah.
So that's a little bit on us and by Borre as a company, and I think it's good to know that I really come in with the play part. So I'm probably sort of the least legal first of everyone here on stage, but that's also an interesting perspective. And what's key here is this transparency, and what the whole idea with this platform Create, what we're trying to do is we try to make it super easy for creators to allow them to make the right decisions. And in that way, to allow them to, as Borre said in the video, to sort of at the start of the chain already make an impact on how the rest of a garment is going to live its life, essentially. And so the idea with this tool is you create your own textiles, and then you really see sort of every step along the way, where does the fiber come from? Where does the yarn come from? Has the fiber maybe been shipped across the ocean to become the yarn? Has the yarn been shipped back across the ocean to become the textile? Has the textile then, et cetera, et cetera. So really being as transparent as you can, because we believe that sort of this transparency is the thing that there's no lying about. You can you can call it sustainability, but then you could also sort of just focus on one specific thing. You could say we're using biocotton, or it's made responsibly, or it's made within 5 kilometers of the Italian border. And there's a lot of wiggle room. Whereas if you say you just open it up completely, but that means you then also sort of open yourself up to critique and open yourself. So you have to be better and you have to do better and at least aspire to. And for my part, I'm responsible for the garment side of things. So whenever sort of how I say it is whenever our textiles intersect with garments is when I come in. And we have our own showcase, which is an in-house label that sells at around 40 doors worldwide, called by Borre Editions. And that's where we really sort of show what we can do with these textiles. And I look at sort of the boundaries of this tool and the boundaries of our textiles and their use cases. And then we also do projects where partners come to us or clients come to us and they ask us to not just work with the textiles, but also sort of borrow some of our design intelligence, to put it that way, and to think about how to implement them and how to put them into garments or in we've worked in automotive, in interior, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a bit sort of about me and how we work.
So, but yeah, fantastic, eh? Great, really great, very creative, very innovative. But so, yeah, is it totally open innovation? Because at the end you said, yeah, there is a kind of legal transaction when other partners are buying some of your designs. So
how that is set up is that we allow access to this tool, and then the specific combination that comes out of artwork, yarn, color, material properties, that then is sort of they belong to the person, the client in that sense, who created them. But so if the next person would say, we want exactly that, that's not possible. But that's the whole point of the tool, is for them to have that, to be able to do their own thing and to start tweaking according to what they want. And then you get these changes and you get sort of, you make something novel, I believe.
Yeah. So it is always something new, and it's really open innovation. Yeah. Yeah. How do you see the future? And is there internally also discussion about, maybe we missed the opportunity to earn a lot of money in the future because we are not protecting it, or do you think, no, that it's really a principle of the company to work like that, and because we don't believe in protection in IP?
I mean, of course, we have to make money to stay in business, to be able to do what we want to do, but it's not the core focus. And in that sense, I think we do believe in this open innovation and opening it up, and that's as a value with the aim to improve the world, rather to just sort of come up with cool stuff and then sort of keep it inside. The idea is that if there's something new that we can offer that makes all of us better, we all win. And there is, of course, sort of how the software is set up is ours. But on the other hand, if someone would want to sort of copy that, and we are doing it our way, and we are sort of light years ahead with how we do it anyway. But if anyone wants to copy it with the same intention, it's only more people trying to do good. That's a bit, yeah.
Yes, interesting indeed. Christina, I go back to you because as a lawyer, what do you think? Is that the future, or do you think it's not so smart? Sooner or later, you will regret.
Well, I think by Borre probably also has a different business model. It's all about sharing, and it's about facilitating. And as far as facilitating goes, if I understand Sam well, then it's the clients that kind of create. They decide, with the facilitation of by Borre, to create a work, and it becomes theirs. So actually the creation is facilitated by Borre, but is made by the clients. And it's an open communication in a partnership. And of course, in the future, there will be more and more and more partnerships, because there will be, Samuel also said, the software, there will be more and more technology. So you will have the traditional designers working with all the new technologies, and we can mention a couple, the 3D printing in fashion, the NFTs, etc., etc. And there will be more and more different people having different rights on different parts, different elements.
Yes, it's becoming more complex. Yeah, and what do you think?
One thing to add to that is that we do have our own creation in-house as well. So there's the tool, and then there's the design side of things. But there too, so we create our garments, we create these patterns, and the idea is that those will also be open source, so that if they then get added, I guess, to sort of that toolbox to facilitate this creation by others, but not just making it into... If people say we need a pattern for a good long sleeve or a good hoodie or whatever, that is also something they could then come to us, and we'd be happy to share that with them. Doesn't mean you can just sort of, the H&Ms and Zara's in the world can just go sort of on the internet and download the pattern. But on the other hand, they don't need that, because they just go to a store and in that sense sort of download the pattern anyway. So, but we do want to make sure that for people starting up and students, that these are tools that they can use.
Yeah, because strictly spoken, the human factor could disappear in the future if they make their own designs, and you're a facilitator. And yeah, what happens then?
In a way it could, and on the other hand, I think also we can still then have that role to show what is possible, and in that sense pushing the boundary. Because if people work with what they know, it's nice to be able to sort of, but maybe that means that also my particular specific role is going to shift from sort of designing collections to, in that sense, designing inspiration for the rest of the platform and for other people to use. And I could see that sort of being something that happens in the industry in general. Maybe we don't need as much of everything all the time, everywhere.
Thank you. Yes, time to go to Barbara Gessler. Yeah, you're already your whole career active at a European level. And since 2017, you are responsible for the Creative Europe Cultural Sub-Program at the DG Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Creative Europe is a program for supporting the cultural and creative sectors in Europe. And yeah, innovation is crucial also for the European economy, and also from a competitive perspective. How does the European Commission deal with this issue of IP and innovation?
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. I said it before, first time I can leave my office to go out since a year and a half, and it leads me to Antwerp. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity and this nice occasion. I'll be very frank, I'm afraid I will disappoint you a little bit, because I will not hold a speech on IP or copyright directives or European Court of Justice rulings. I wanted to rather speak about the notion of innovation in general. And of course, it's linked to the idea of intellectual property being involved in the creative and artistic process. So sorry, Christine, and I'm also not a lawyer, so you're probably not the least not legal person on this panel. Yes, because thank you, Annick, for introducing me. I run the Creative Europe program, and it's a funding program for European projects, for the European culture and creative sector. And of course, we're not going to talk about funding today, although some of you may be interested in this. It's always good to know where money can come from. But I wanted to share with you a little bit the ideas behind the program, because we have recently renegotiated the new generation of programs, which will be responsible for, which will be running for the years 21 to 27. So we have just started a new cycle, and we have considerably increased also our budget. And that is maybe the first thing that I would like to say, is that the fact that we managed to achieve a higher budget for culture and creativity in Europe means that there's a recognition and an acknowledgement about the role of culture and creativity in Europe. And I think, I'm sometimes sad to say, but I think we're sometimes also a little bit the winners of the crisis, because everybody saw in this crisis how important it is that we have the opportunity to recur to culture and creation during the past year and a half. So in our program, we have, of course, and in the negotiations running up to the adoption of the program, we have discussed a lot, of course, about the need and the necessity for innovation. And innovation for culture and creativity, in our eyes, are both, of course, a challenge and an opportunity, as Christine and you, Annick, have also rightly said, because the mission of the European Commission in our area, in the cultural, properly speaking, in the cultural area, is one that is ruled by the idea that we have to promote and protect our cultural diversity, because this is what will distinguish us from other parts of the world. And cultural diversity, the fact that we will be able to withhold in Europe cultural diversity, depends very much on the capabilities of the artists and the operators to be able to create and to be able to innovate. And of course, intellectual property and its protection are part and parcel of this business environment that will make it possible for the cultural sector and the creative operators to thrive. So it's an essential part. And of course, what Christine was saying earlier, our program is, of course, running along the lines and the principles of all the European legislation in that area, the copyright area that you mentioned, for example. But I don't know if everybody knows what a European directive is and how it works. A directive is mainly a framework at the European level that then needs to be implemented into national law. So, of course, a harmonized European copyright area is essential to be able to establish a European single market. That's the other coin of what we do at the European level. You mentioned it, Annick. We have, on the one hand, the cultural diversity. That's what we believe makes us rich in Europe. But also we have the competitive element. We need to become or stay competitive at the global level. And in your area that you are working in or striving to work in, this is, of course, essential because we're looking at a global environment. And therefore, this is an area in which the European Commission is very much involved. So how do we make sure that European culture and creatives use innovation as well, and the opportunities that that technology, and in particular digital technology, has for us? In particular, using new business opportunities, creating new business models, being able to use the business potential of these technologies is what we want to do. And of course, there's a lot of aspects of research in this area, because eventually this is also supposed to be leading to more jobs and to more growth. So there will always be the kind of political objective in everything that we do that also gives us the possibility to act at the European level. because you will remember, or maybe you won't because you've never heard it, but cultural policy, and that's where I come from, is ruled by what we call subsidiarity. We're only doing at the European level what cannot better be done at other levels. So this is why we always have to look for where is the European added value in everything that we do. And we believe that, of course, and this is also what we fund through the program, is that new knowledge and everything that is being acquired, in particular also in the digital area, is boosting competitiveness. And then, of course, will also spark innovation, and that, of course, can also have a very positive business impact. And that's very good because we're looking at the value chains, of course, as well. So we have this cultural aspect in our program and this economic aspect in our program. It's a second aspect that I wanted to say. If we look at innovation in the framework of Creative Europe, it's not only about technology. So it's not only about digital tools. It's also, if you look at the different regions or if you look at the different sectors, because we cater for all the sectors, something can be innovative in one region and totally old school in another region. And this is why, if you look at what is the European added value, we believe in the exchange. This is something that we are supposed to do. We are supposed to inspire partnerships, and we are supposed to help exchange across borders, because what's common knowledge here and what's a design prize in the Netherlands may be something really innovative that others can learn from even more in other areas of Europe. So this is something that we always have to bear in mind. And it can also be social inclusion. A lot of people tell us, it's not only about technology. Something, for example, participation, making, sharing is a social innovation tool that for us is also very important. The whole notion of partnerships and stimulating partnerships across Europe is something that is extremely important for us. And of course, also stimulating partnerships between the public, often publicly funded organizations and entities with private organizations and creators. In the center of this, obviously, is the creator and the artist. For us, it's very important because we believe cultural diversity will only live if we have support for emerging artists. This is why we are also supporting some of the projects in the back there. I know we have projects that we support because we look at the creative side that Europe is so special about. Last but not least, everything that was said today is also something, of course, that the Commission looks into. I'm just representing the culture part of the European Commission, but in particular, your industry is being looked at from a single market point of view, because of course, we have to have a single market also around intellectual property, because otherwise works would not be able to travel, just like people would not be able to travel if we build up walls or borders again. This is important for the very big European small and medium-sized enterprise environment, of course. We are also looking at the international trade environment. You mentioned it, the WIPO, the World Organization for Intellectual Property. This is something that has an impact at the European level when we deal with people outside Europe. We look at the aspect, very importantly, of sustainability, but in a rather broad concept. Of course, looking at energy, looking at the protection of heritage on the other side. So these are sometimes to be kept in a balance. We're looking also at reinforcing skills of people, being able to use technologies and being able to survive in this constantly changing, challenging environment is something that we also invest in. We look at areas like taxation as well, because that's also a very important area for particular the single market. Then we have the whole big research program that also invests now heavily in the culture and creative sector. So you will find in all of those areas of policy, like at other levels, you will find hooks where your industry is concerned, and that is something that I wanted to share with you. And last but not least, you may have heard of the new European Bauhaus initiative that the Commission President launched last year, which is also about living together in a beautiful and aesthetic and sustainable way, and very much considering the product cycles. And making it really people-centered, our environment. And there, I think, in particular, the fashion industry can play a very big role to contribute to this. So I'm a little bit off topic, but maybe you could understand what I was trying to bring in.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, normally we should start the discussion now, but the time is up. We are already over time. So unfortunately, I have to close the discussion here. We have still more 10 minutes. Oh, that's very good. Yeah, because I have some some questions, but first the audience. Are there some questions to one of the panel members or general comment about the topic of today?
Hi, my name is Sarah. I live and work in Antwerp in sustainability. I have a question for Samuel. Nice movie. If I understood well, you are trying to make it easier for designers to create consciously. So you say, okay, you take care of the design and we are going to take care of the transparent production. I was wondering, because Borre says at some point, yeah, bring it on, no matter how much you need to produce, we can deal with it. How can you ensure this transparency from the beginning to the end of the supply chain? Because this is from my experience, the worst enemy or the biggest monster question for brands today. And another thing, how can you make sure that whichever scale you can still ensure the same quality and the same transparency to the designer? Thank you.
It's a good question. I think good to clarify is that we take care of the textile production. So we don't take care of the garment production. And I'm very aware that sort of in both sides, there's a lot that can be improved upon. And we believe that sort of through vetting who we work with, and also sort of, so on the textile level, so we don't produce everything in-house. We develop and innovate the textiles, and then we work with licensed partners around the world. One of the things is we then try to match the production partner to where the end product will be, so where the façon is going to be, where the garment's going to be stitched together. And we dare to, if our goal is to be super transparent, then it's basically sort of, we do our checks, but it's also completely visible for people where the textiles are made and who is making them. And at that point, luckily with textiles, scale doesn't really matter that much, because the machines will just turn, basically. I don't know if that answers your question. And the second question was, sorry? Yeah, I don't know if I covered those two things in the same.
It was. I was mostly worried about the scale, because he says no matter how much we can handle it, but the scale is often the problem. I mean, when you do it very small and very local, then of course it's easy to control. But if you're going to produce more, then you have to outsource or you have to have this capacity. So how do you manage this?
In that sense, we do outsource, but we sort of really are we keep everyone who we outsource to super tight. And then the scale can be a small amount of meters for a small designer, and then we sort of figure out where to do that on a smaller scale. But if it needs to be big because, I don't know, some big name brand comes and wants like thousands and thousands of meters, to once we're sort of in there to the factory, that doesn't matter basically, because they push the button to produce the textiles in that sense. And we then just sort of ensure that all the materials that are needed to get these textiles are also sort of checked and vetted, and we're just open about.
And this is based on some certifications, or you go physically to do this? Like how you monitor desktop, or
it's a combination. I mean, we physically the aim is, that's of course been sort of difficult this past year and a half, but the aim is to also sort of check everything, and we have people in-house who are sort of basically on top of the whole sustainability and environmental awareness and responsibility side of our business as well.
Thanks.
Yes, in King. And another question there. Ian King first. Yeah.
Hi, sorry, I'm going to ask a legal question now, but so I'm not sure if it's to the whole panel. But to me, the real problem is the test of originality. Ultimately, people can turn up with Sanmu and say, "I've got a great design here. How do we know that's original?" Secondly, okay, going back to the legal side, how do you protect the notion of originality? Thank you.
So first you, and then to Christine.
I think on one hand, we've had cases where people sort of come to us and have a question, and that wasn't on originality necessarily, but maybe just on things that culturally they shouldn't have touched, that they came to us to put on a textile. And in that sense, we flagged it. And at the scale that we're currently at, that's something that we can do. But at one point, that's also going to be automated. For example, that our platform should be able to recognize these things. And there's, of course, going to be errors there. But I think that for the foreseeable future, it's going to be sort of a mix of human and machine. And that's something that's going to sort of, the machine thing is at one point going to take over.
Your question was how to protect originality. Since originality is a condition for copyright protection, and that copyright protection or copyrighted works cannot be registered, at least not in Europe. It's different in the States. But in Europe, there is no copyright registry, which makes it difficult because it's much easier to go look into a register and find out what has already been created. And so you would know right away, not right away maybe, but you can have enough source to do your research, which doesn't exist today. So you have to organize your own proofs, keep track of everything, your designs, you sign them, you date them, you keep them, you have a good file, and you use other possibilities such as the iDepot with the Benelux Office for Intellectual Property, where you file all your designs at once. It's really cheap, so I would definitely advise everybody to do that. And that's the way you do it with originality. It's much different with the design and models rights. Because if your creation is protected by design and models rights because it's novel, in that case, you can register your creation with the registry of designs and models. And you would also be able to look into the registry and see what has already been created and find out whether you are creating something that is identical or similar. and whether you're at risk or not.
Thank you. Last question for Astrid.
Yeah, I don't know who I have to ask this question to. I want to represent the new tribes of Europe. Let's call it that way. That means that I'm talking about originality. We're talking about inclusiveness. We're talking about, partnerships. I know, living in the Netherlands, there's a big discussions going on amongst people from other culture backgrounds, saying that a lot of their ideas and their how do you say it, originality has been they are taken from them and then being industrialized. How? Yeah, I don't know how to ask the question, but I can see that you understand. How can we work together with whether people are Chinese or African or blah, blah, blah? How can we make sure that we include these people in the new ways of thinking and creating in Europe?
Yes, we recognize it because in our preparatory meeting, we said, that's the question of heritage, of cultural appropriation. And so we thought, we have to choose. So we choose for the angle of innovation and digitization, but that's because that's another whole discussion, a very important discussion, but we can't do everything. But nevertheless, who wants to react on that? Yeah.
Sometimes the question is more important than the answer. Yeah.
I think you can respond in different ways to your question, and probably Barbara from the cultural side will see it her way. On the legal side, it's exactly what I've said earlier. You look at what has been created before. If today I think of a print, for instance, and I design a beautiful print, which is an African print, but I've just copied some previous prints, I'm in trouble. The purpose is to create something new, something original, depending on what you do. And it is for originality, as I said, it does not have to be new, but it has to express the personality of this famous author who has made his own choices. And it will be different from what already existed. Maybe some elements in that creation will be just commonplace. Maybe they will all be commonplace, but the combination may be very original. So it's always looking at, is that famous condition of originality or novelty fulfilled or not?
Yeah, just to add, maybe, of course, from my point of view, I run a funding program. What we would do in such a case is stimulate at least the exchange of good experience and good practice, for example. And I think that's already a step further, because while you may already be far advanced in this discussion, maybe in France or in the Netherlands, maybe there are other countries where there's still a lot to learn about this. And our approach will always be to look across borders and check how such an inclusive approach can be stimulated, and how the protection of these rights can actually be ensured. That is how we would go about it. We will not ourselves be able to act on this from the European level, as I said before. But what we do stimulate, of course, is that people have an awareness around this, But it's you're opening up a big door, as Annick said. This is a philosophical question that rules at the moment on questions of identity, touching very much on this as well. So, yes, we are looking at this from a political point of view in a way such as what I didn't say before. For our projects that we support, the most important principle is artistic freedom. And we want under no circumstance to impede or to infringe artistic freedom. And therefore it will always be the project bearers that will have to make out for this. But if they can get inspired by someone else, that's what we would like to happen.
I think sort of speaking as a creative, on the one hand, being aware of that. First of all, thank you for the question. Being aware of the platform we have, and then our goal is to really sort of dare to just open up those doors and to make sure that everyone who wants to be part of it is able to be part of it. And then I think sort of as a creator myself, it starts really with sort of educating yourself and then also sort of educating others and just being very aware of, because on the one hand, and I also preach this somewhere, that it's sort of easy to just go like creativity above all and always innovation, and you keep on making new stuff. But it is good to know what came before, where that come from, whether that's something that you can touch, you cannot touch, you can sort of invite others to sort of work with you on these kind of topics. And I think sort of that's something, especially for students, to sort of not ignore how important it is to know sort of how big the world is and who else are in there, I think.
Yes, thank you. Now we really have to finish the discussion, but it's indeed not only a philosophical, but a big ethical issue. Yeah. So that's for the next Congress, and the next debate touch also upon that, because Katrien Willems knows that very well. She's also working with originality in another way. So let's keep it on that. Thank you very much for the panel members. So there is no right answers, more questions, and what will be the future, and how will impact technology, how will that further impact fashion? And yeah, legislation is always lacking behind reality, I think. And so we have a legal framework, but it's becoming more complex. It's becoming more difficult to control. So the question is still there. What is the best choice? Be open and sharing everything, ideas, or on the other hand, going for protection. Thank you very much. And yes, I hope you learned a bit also about this panel and about the difference between originality and authenticity. And yeah, thank you. It's time for the next program.